In 2017, scientists at Monal Chemical Senses Center decided to take on one of life's greatest mysteries. What makes an Oreo cookie taste like an Oreo cookie? To answer this, they got 18 people together and made them stare into these funhouse mirrors while they ate Oreos. The idea was that if they could figure out what made an Oreo look like an Oreo, then maybe they could figure out what makes it taste like an Oreo. And after 2 years of staring at cookies in mirrors, they finally cracked it. Now, I know that sounds stupid. It's like saying, hey, look, my house is on fire. Let's spend the next 2 years staring at it really hard. But science works in mysterious ways. And by the end of the study, they had an answer. Oreo flavor comes from 6 main chemicals: vanillin, xeneone, diacetyl, pyrazine, methionol, and limonene. They found that the texture of the cookie also plays a role. In particular, how much pressure you put on the cookie when you bite into it affects how those flavors develop. So softer cookies have a stronger, more distinct Oreo flavor than harder cookies. That might be why Oreos taste better when you dunk them in milk. Milk softens the cookie and releases those flavor molecules. But there's a problem. Not all Oreos taste like Oreos. Sometimes Oreos taste like chalk, dirt, old gym socks, or regret. And that's because the same molecules that give Oreos their distinctive flavor are also found in all sorts of other foods and chemicals, which means we can use them to trick our brains into thinking they're eating something else. Like these jelly beans that were made to taste like a tire and this other one that tastes like a newspaper. And we even tricked someone into thinking they were drinking wine with this one. You see, everything we perceive as flavor is actually just our brain responding to chemicals. Chemicals that we call odorants bind to receptors in our noses. When those receptors get activated, they send signals to the brain, which interprets them as specific smells. We have about 400 different types of odorant receptors, which means we can detect around 1 trillion different smells. But here's the thing. There's only about 10 trillion bacteria in the entire human body. So each of us has about 10 times more receptors for smelling things than we do bacteria to smell. But there are even more molecules that activate those receptors than actual smells. So what determines whether we perceive something as a smell? Well, the first part is pretty obvious. You need to have the right mix of odorants in the air. For example, the reason your house doesn't smell like lasagna is because there isn't any lasagna in the house. But beyond that, it's kind of a mystery. There are so many possible smells that we aren't even aware of most of them. It's like living inside a video game with infinite worlds, but we can only see one of them. That's why sometimes we can smell things that we don't know the name of. We might have smelled that odorant before, but not enough to create a memory of it. So our brains sort of categorize it in the same way. A dog might hear a whistle that humans can't hear, but since they haven't heard it before, they won't know what to do with the information. It's the same with us and food. We might pick up on molecules that are activating our flavor receptors, but without a framework to interpret them, they just seem weird. But once we have that framework, those molecules become a familiar flavor. This is how acquired dysgeusia happens. It's when someone develops a taste for something they didn't used to, like cilantro. Cilantro gets its distinct soapy taste from 2 chemicals called aldehydes. Some people don't have the receptors for those aldehydes, so they won't taste anything when they eat cilantro. But people who do have the receptors might not taste anything either. Cilantro has to be activated first, usually through cooking. Once it's been activated, some people develop a taste for it. Others develop a hate for it. Some people can even taste both the activated and non-activated forms, and they're completely different. Cilantro can go from tasting like a delicious citrus fruit to tasting like a cold, wet dog. That's because some people have different versions of the same receptor, and they respond differently to the same chemical. One version might make them taste cilantro like soap, while another might make it taste like a refreshing herb. If you want to see this firsthand, you can buy cilantro at the store and wash it in warm water. Then let it sit in the fridge overnight and see if the flavor changes the next day. Here's a cool example of this. Have you ever noticed that hot chocolate doesn't taste like hot cocoa after a while? Well, there's a molecule in cocoa called 3-methylpyrazine. It activates our receptors for sweet and roasted flavors, but only under certain conditions. At low concentrations, it activates one type of receptor, making the hot chocolate taste sweet. But at higher concentrations, it activates another type of receptor, making the hot chocolate taste more like burnt caramel. This is what happens when you heat the hot chocolate. The heat releases more of that molecule. So at first it seems sweeter, but then it starts to taste more bitter. And the longer you drink the hot chocolate, the more bitter it becomes. A lot of our favorite flavors depend on these kinds of interactions between chemicals, temperatures, and receptors. And since every person has a unique combination of receptors, everyone experiences flavor a little bit differently. So you might think that means no one can ever truly experience your taste of pad thai or falafel or whatever, and that would be wrong. Our unique tastes are what make cooking and eating together such a special experience. It's a chance to learn about another person's brain chemistry. But sometimes we want to change the way things taste. Maybe we want to hide bad flavors or bring out the good ones. Or maybe we just want to make some magic happen. For instance, there's this Japanese restaurant in New York City that serves a dessert called ohaguro, which is supposed to taste like a cucumber sandwich. It doesn't look or smell like a cucumber sandwich, but the second you eat it, your brain interprets it as a cucumber sandwich. It's actually just a bunch of cucumber molecules sprayed into the air using liquid nitrogen. That's the same stuff they spray in those fancy restaurants to make the food look like it's on fire. So now you can eat a cucumber sandwich whenever you want as long as you have a can of compressed cucumbers nearby. But how do you get those flavors into your brain? You can try making a delicious meal, but that takes time and effort. You could hang out at a friend's house and hope they cook something good, but that takes social skills. Or you could just take a pill. Now, I'm not recommending that, but scientists have actually made a few pills that make certain foods taste better. The idea is that if you identify the molecules responsible for a certain flavor, you can create a pill that adds those molecules to your saliva. So, if you were chewing food that didn't have those molecules, it would taste like it had. For example, in 2019, researchers at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine developed a pill that enhanced the sweetness of food. Their goal was to help people with diabetes avoid added sugar. So far, it seems to work. But you wouldn't want to take this pill unless you wanted everything you ate to taste like candy. Of course, we already do this sort of thing all the time. Pickles are often dipped in pickle juice to make them taste better. Bread can be toasted to make it taste better. Wine can be paired with cheese to make it taste better. Cooking oil can be heated to make it taste better. Food can be soaked in salt water to make it taste better. Basically, if you think about it, every seasoning or cooking technique is just a way to add or remove certain molecules from a certain food. Salt, for example, is sodium chloride, but sodium also binds to other molecules and removes them from the food. Some of those molecules might be making the food taste worse, so removing them makes it taste better. And that's how we discover new flavors. Scientists did this with this blue chicken broth. It looked like chicken broth, but it tasted like anything but chicken broth. They removed some of the bad-tasting molecules and eventually ended up with a clear winner. It tasted like a blueberry muffin. Sometimes it takes hundreds of attempts to get it right, but once they do, they can create something totally new. All of our favorite seasonings and recipes were discovered this way, except for one. No one knows exactly how someone discovered that ketchup tastes good on French fries. Now you know the hidden science behind flavor, but how well do you know the hidden science behind vision?